Hey guys, it's Paige at Comfort Books, and I'm here to do something a little different. Um, I'm used to doing Friday reads, book hauls, wrap-ups, TBRs, that kind of stuff. And I'm gonna do something different. I'm gonna do a book talk. I know a lot of YouTubers do book talks, and sometimes they're just talking about the book in general, or sometimes they're doing this more of a review. I like to call this a book talk because I'm more or less talking about the points that I wrote down in my book lovers journal rather than actually reviewing the book. Like, I'm going to be saying how many stars I give it and stuff like that, but I sometimes when I write my reviews, I don't have this with me. So sometimes I forget what I wrote in the book, so I don't add them in my reviews. And sometimes I do like what I wrote down, whether it's a quote or if it's like a question or something like that. I like what I wrote down. Obviously, I wouldn't have wrote it down if I didn't. So I hate when I forget this because then when I write my reviews, I'm like, crap, I don't know what I wrote, and I forget this quite often. So I think for every book that I finished in here, I'm going to do a book talk as well as a written review. And some of the written reviews may have the same points, but sometimes when I'm writing the written reviews, I have a hard time working in what I wrote into the review. So again, that's when I'll do the book talk. So my first book talk, 'cause this is my first ever. I've done reviews on here before, but this is my first doing it as a book talk. I just went in from the back because I was going to do it from the very first book, but then I realized I should probably do it from the one I finished most, like, recently, so I can remember things about the book. And it's bad because I've only finished this, like, last month, and I still can't really remember much about it. I mean, I can remember everything about it, but, like, some of the points I'm like, wait a minute, when did that happen? So it's kind of bad, but I went through the back of my book lovers journal. I started from the back and went to the ones I finished, and this is the first one I finished going backwards. So I decided that I'm going to talk about today A Flower in the Snow by Mark G. Cosman. Now, this is a book I got for review. The author emailed me and asked me if I would review it. He sent me this and one other book. He also has a book called The Kids from the River, which I haven't read yet, but I'm hoping to read soon because I enjoyed this one. Okay, so first I'll tell you that I gave it 3 stars, and I'll get into why I gave it 3 stars in the book talk, but other than that. So let's tell you, the book itself is a true story, which is one of the reasons why I loved it, because I love true stories. I love true crime, I love biographies, I love everything like that. This is a true story about the author's daughter who got shot in the head on her prom night. She was sleeping on the couch at an after party, and she tragically got shot in the head. So, this is the author's account of that night, him and his family's. He writes about him and his family's emotions, how they reacted, how they dealt with it. He talks about how his family reacts, but he talks mostly about how he reacts and how he's dealing with it and whatnot. The first few chapters are going back and forth between that night and how his family's adapting to not having Berlin, which is the daughter, in their life anymore. It's touching. The first few chapters are really touching. I liked being able to get inside the families, how they're dealing with it and stuff. I liked that a lot. I liked that aspect. The first thing I wrote down here was, I can't believe people are calling the house and acting like that. So one of the first things we find out after her death is a lot of people call their house and leave nasty messages about her death, and I'm just like dumbfounded because I can understand if this girl, the girl that got killed, was bad, if she was not well liked, and if she was like a drug addict, and then people didn't, you know what I mean? Like, I can understand people calling and being like, I'm glad she's dead. It's still bad, but I can understand it. This girl, she was good, like, she had good grades, she had friends, she was well liked, she was on the basketball team, like, she was a good girl, all around good girl. And she gets killed, and people are calling the house saying, I'm glad your daughter's dead. Like, on the first thing I bookmarked, I'll read it to you. It says, the caller waited for my response. I could hear him breathing. I hung up. Then I recalled what happened the night before. A different male voice with a slow, revealing cadence growled from the phone when I answered. I'm glad your daughter's dead, he snarled. Like, what? Who would call a family who just lost their daughter tragically and say that? Like, I don't understand. I actually just filmed this this a few minutes ago, and I got cut short, so I decided to just redo it, and I said some things in the beginning, and I can't remember what I said, and it's making me angry. Hopefully I'll remember it. The next point that I wrote down is, in the book, the author talks about signs that he should have recognized, or his wife or his daughter should have recognized, to know that his daughter's death was a possibility. One of the signs that I took note of was she was reading a book before she died, and in that book, the main character was randomly shot in the head, just like she was. So the father considers that a sign to her death, and he finds that out because I think he cleaned out her school locker and decides to read the book that she was reading, or something like that. But there's a lot of signs throughout the book that he thinks are either his fault or just signs he shouldn't have missed, is what he says in the book a lot. I ended up giving this a 3 stars, and the only reason I gave it a 3 stars is not because it was bad. Most of the book was interesting. I liked hearing the story. I liked hearing Mark's story about his daughter. I liked hearing about Berlin's life and how the family is going on with their lives now. The only thing I didn't like was there are a few chapters in the book that just didn't go with the story. Like, some of it, like, for instance, his past, when he talked about his past, I liked that, and I feel like I connected because it was him kind of saying how he felt in his past connected to how he felt now. That makes sense. I understood that completely. But there's a couple chapters near the end where he's talking about, like, religion and, like, Chinese Buddhas and all this kind of stuff, and I'm just like, I personally don't understand it, so I can't relate, I feel like a lot of people that read this book are going to be like, wait a minute, what's happening? All this ministers and all these Chinese people, and what is he talking about? And I'm sure in the book he explained it thoroughly, but, like, when we got to this point in the book, my head just kind of went, boo. Like, I wasn't connecting, because it's not that I didn't care, but, like, I don't know how to explain it. I'm not a very religious person, so I didn't take the time to understand where he was coming from the religious perspective. And I think a lot of books have that problem when they talk about religion, because you can't expect everybody to understand your religion. You can't expect people to understand when you're writing about a religion, unless you're willingly going to sit down and, like, write exactly what it means, and still then sometimes people aren't gonna want to read that, you know what I mean? And so those couple chapters made the end of the book kind of boring to me. I feel like it could have been a little bit better, the ending, but other than that, the rest of the book was good. I feel like there's so much more I wanted to say, but I can't remember what I should have wrote notes. I'm bad. This is my first one though, okay? Because I'll do better on my second one. The last point I wanted to get to before I signed off was she went to prom with a boy. Okay, that boy was with her the whole night, and he was actually sleeping next to her. As if I read that right, he was sleeping next to her when she got shot. Now, my thing is, okay, if he was sleeping and didn't see anybody, it just happened in a split second and he couldn't do anything, that's fine. Okay, I understand. But in the book, it says that when they were sleeping, he looked up and saw the gunman come into the room, and he just looked up, thought nothing of it, and then went back to sleep, and then Berlin got shot. I can't get that through my head. Like, why would you see someone who was mad before because he got kicked out of the party, drunk, and have a gun, and then why would you not think of anything of it? Like, you never know what could happen. I would take every precaution. The mind does crazy things. You never know what he was thinking. He could have shot anybody in that room. He could have shot himself. He could have done anything. And the prom date looked him in the eye and then was like, okay, he's fine, and then went back to sleep. I can't fathom that. And I don't know how, because I think in the book the father, like, forgave the prom date. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But if it was my kid, I would not have been able to forgive. I would have been like, you should have woken up, did something, at least did something. I mean, I could understand if he didn't, if he got up and then Berlin was shot while he was getting up. Like, that's okay, whatever. But he should have at least done something. He did nothing. He just opened his eye, was like, oh, and then went back to sleep. And then there was another part in the book where a girl came out after she got shot, looked at her and was like, well, that sucks, or something like that, and then went back to sleep. Like, what? Like, I don't know. I don't even know when this was. I think it was recently published, but I don't remember. Okay, let's see the year. Okay, so it was in the early 1990s. But that still doesn't give people the right to just be like, oh, that sucks, you got shot, sorry, bye. I don't understand the world. So, that is pretty much everything I have to say about that book. Again, I gave it 3 stars. Most of it was good. I liked the aspect. I liked the story, the family. I just didn't like the ending where it incorporated a lot of religion, thinking, stuff like that. Because I'm not the smartest person. I can't understand everything. Because, like, a lot of the words, I was like, what? I don't know. I just found myself getting confused. And if you understand what I'm trying to say, please let me know in the comments so I know that I'm not just a rambling idiot. But thank you guys for watching my first book talk. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more of these, if you have seen my book hauls and you want me to do a book talk on one of those books that I bought that I will read soon, let me know in the comments. I would love to know. But thanks again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, leave comments, like, thumbs up, stuff like that. You know. Thanks for watching, guys. Good night.